Yo, what's up, new friendos? Welcome back to the Tropical Garage. My name's Troy, and today I've got another in-depth episode. And if you couldn't tell by the intro, today's episode is going to be about my Oophaga Pumilio Cemetery Bastimentos Vivarium. Getting started with the enclosure itself, this one was actually built by Protein, as you can see the curved front air duct piece, and it measures 22 by 17 by 24 inches. I did like I normally do with a custom background made out of Great Stuff expanding foam, Malaysian driftwood, and I carved it and then covered it in the dry lock and Quickcrete cement colors, like all my vivariums I do as of late. All my vivariums are drilled and have a bulkhead for drainage, so this one is no different. The drainage layer consists of grow stones, and on top of that there's ABG, which for those of you who don't know stands for Atlanta Botanical Gardens, and it is then topped off with live oak leaf litter, Indian almond leaves, Java moss, monkey pods, and some more driftwood. And this enclosure houses a pair of my Oophaga Pumilio Cemetery Bastimentos. So to start off on the plants portion of the video, I've mentioned this before in some of my live streams and some of my tours on the channel. I like to keep my Pumilio tanks pretty simple and open for the most part as far as the planting goes. The main thing that you're going to want to have is Bromeliads. Pumilio use Bromeliads as a nursery for their tadpoles, so that's by far the most important thing when it comes to choosing plants for Pumilio, so that's what we're going to start off with. So my personal pair seems to be particular to the Neoregelia Big O Bromeliads. These are a medium-sized bromeliad suitable for most medium-sized enclosures. They have nice deep axils, which are perfect for Pumilio tadpoles, and they seem to pup fairly often and easily, and the closer to the light the plant is, the more vibrant it will be. This one's Neoregelia Zoe, and for whatever reason my pair doesn't seem to use this one nearly as much for rearing tads. It may be because the axils are not quite as large nor deep. Zoe does pup like crazy, and like Big O, the closer to the light this one gets, the more color it has. As you can see the drastic difference between these two plants at different heights. This one is Neoregelia Lil Babe. This one is strictly just an accent bromeliad for aesthetics. Lil Babe stays quite small like the name implies. I've had it pup every once in a while, but I definitely wouldn't say it pups often. This one is Amidrium zippelianum. I don't know much about this plant. I've never used it before. As you can see, this is a new cutting, so we'll see how this one does. Here we have Syngonium lanocardiroide. This is a really cool climbing plant that has very nice dark green leaves. This particular one you're looking at is just a cutting from another tank, so it really hasn't gotten a chance to take off yet. This plant does very well in humid vivarium conditions. This is Gravia small round. When it's climbing, the leaves stay very small and round, and it's a really nice looking shingling vine that loves a damp environment, but when it has nowhere to climb anymore, the mature growth starts, which looks completely different, and somewhat large, long, elongated leaves that don't shingle like the immature growth. It's still nice looking, but I prefer the immature growth. And here we have a piece of Gravia Umbilata. As you can see, this doesn't look amazing, but I actually forgot that I had this plant in here. As I was going through the tank, I kind of saw a little bit peeking through some moss, so here it is. And this is a microgramma species. I can't remember what it is. I actually got it in a trade from somebody. I don't know if it's Reptins or if it's Tecta. I'm not exactly sure, but it grows like crazy in this tank when I just set it on moss, and you can see it's just growing a pretty elaborate root structure, and it's a really cool aphytic fern. And the last plant on the list in the tank is Peperomia Perciliata. This one has been a really slow grower for me in this tank, and I really like it. It's got nice dark green leaves when they're mature, and the new growth is very light green, which creates some nice contrast. I really like it when it starts to hang off the edge of the wood, creating a cascade effect similar to Peperomia marginella, but the leaves are significantly larger and different. But this plant has slowly been making its way up the ranks for me personally as a favorite vine. Oophaga Pumilio Cemetery Bastimentos, or Basti, are very small dart frogs only reaching about an inch long from the Isla Bastimentos in Bocas del Toro, Panama. In my personal experience, they are one of, if not the boldest Pumilio. Mine are always out and the male's constantly calling his head off. The cemetery locale of Bastimentos are particularly cool because they're incredibly variable in terms of the colors and the spotting of their offspring. No matter what color the parents are, they can produce an array of colors, including orange, red, yellow, peach, and gold dust, which is like a pale yellow and sometimes white in some cases. Their spotting can vary from very heavily spotted to almost no spots. And nearly all cemetery Bastimentos have white feet and predominantly white bellies. Cemetery Basti will eat an array of small insects, including melanogaster fruit flies, springtails, and other microfauna. They'll also take down Hydeae fruit flies no problem. But in my experience, I have noticed some of the animals would prolapse the day or day after a feeding, so I stopped feeding them Hydeaes. For me, I keep all my cemetery Bastimentos on the upper row of the frog room, because it's a little warmer on that shelf, with temps on the ground staying around 72 degrees temperature, at the top of the enclosure around 78 to 80 degrees. Their humidity is kept pretty high, around 80%, with lots of misting to keep fresh water going in the Bromeliads daily for the tadpoles. Breeding Basti is fairly easy. Giving them substantial food and vitamins such as calcium every feeding and vitamin A twice a month will certainly help. Sexual maturity takes around 8 months for them to reach, so if you've got a male and a female, you should begin to see some courtship, which consists of a male calling constantly throughout the day and following and stalking the female around the tank, moving in an almost robotic manner. They'll do this for several hours or even days. Basti will lay on bromeliad leaves or other natural hard surfaces, but most people in the hobby commonly use film canisters for egg deposition sites. I put them at various different heights in the tank, ranging from the top all the way down to the ground. Their eggs are very small, so it's easiest to check the canisters at night when the lights have shut off, and you can shine a flashlight into the canisters to check for eggs. Bastimentos are from the genus of Oophaga, which is Greek for egg eater. This means that we, the breeders, are not really in the driver's seat when it comes to rearing tadpoles. The parents do all the work. Once they've laid a viable clutch of eggs and the tadpoles have hatched out, the female will visit the canister and the tadpoles will swim up onto its back and hitch a ride to the nearest suitable bromeliad axle. The female will then visit the axle multiple times a week, and when the tadpole is hungry, it basically vibrates in the water, signaling that it's hungry, and the female will deposit multiple infertile eggs for it to eat. It usually takes about 2 to 3 months for the tadpoles to morph out and become froglets. Froglets are by far the most difficult part of successfully breeding Oophaga Pumilio. Offspring are very, very tiny when they morph out. Even the healthiest of morphlets are still very tiny, and much too small to take down fruit flies right away. So they will only really eat springtails and other tiny microfauna for the first couple weeks. This can create a problem because it's much harder to dust microfauna with the proper calcium supplements, and oftentimes offspring will develop metabolic bone disease in this short time period. But for the animals that do develop healthy and graduate on to eating dusted fruit flies, the road to adulthood is much easier from there on out. Alright, friendos, that's going to do it for this week's in-depth episode featuring my Cemetery Bastimentos Vivarium. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and hopefully you guys are digging this new in-depth series I'm doing. Let me know down in the comments which vivarium of mine you'd like to see in the next episode. Also, if you guys care about my well-being whatsoever, just gently caress those subscribe, like, and notification bell buttons. Don't even worry about smashing it. Just a nice little caress is all it's needed. But anyways, we'll see you on the next one. Goldberg.